Alcoholic.
Hey, Chad.
Hey, Chad.
Uh, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be sharing my experience, strength, and hope as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's to come from where we come from and to sit sober, is an amazing thing. I was born in Aspen, and my family moved back to Golden when I was a couple of years old, and so I've lived in Colorado my whole life, and I had just a great childhood. I had one of those childhoods that was as close to perfect as a kid could want, and I was the baby and had older brother and sister, and was very spoiled, and I felt loved and wanted and cared for. So I consider myself very lucky for my upbringing. And at about 10 years old, my perfect life kind of blew apart. My parents got divorced, and it made me just kind of rethink life. I didn't know, what was going on, because my whole world was suddenly changed. And, at that point, I started kind of feel a little different. And, at 10 years old, your job is to go to school and pass and get grades that will let you pass and all that stuff. And I was able to do that without any problem. And, so suddenly after sixth grade, 12 years old, my world changed again. Going to junior high, that was kind of a different experience, as new kids, older kids, bigger kids, and all of a sudden, I kind of started feeling a little geeky and left out. But on my first day of seventh grade, I hopped off the bus, and this guy came zooming down the sidewalk on his skateboard. And I just saw this guy. I was like, man, he's the coolest guy I ever saw. And I had a class with him. We wound up becoming friends. And there was another guy I met that day too. He was kind of, he was a year older. He was kind of one of the scary kids. You could tell he was up to something. And, anyhow, I kind of became friends with these two guys. And, not too long after that, drinking started becoming a part of my life. And, the first time I drank, a lot of people talk about, just, knowing that that's what they wanted to do. I mean, it was just like such a life-changing experience. And, and I definitely liked drinking, but, at the same time, at 13 years old, it wasn't, the thing that, it's like at that moment, at least, I knew it wasn't the thing I had to do, but as, the year passed, drinking started becoming more part of stuff. And, and I had another friend who was, drinking much harder and everything. And he would come over to my house before school, and, we'd start drinking a little bit before school, and as we'd catch the school bus, and, that became more and more regular thing. And, I knew it wasn't normal, but I knew it wasn't, what the other kids were doing, but, between me and this guy, it was what we were doing, and it, it made the morning better. And so my disease had a fairly short fuse. Like I said, I started at 13. Looking back, by the time I was 15, I'd probably lost the power to choose whether I drank or not. And I just didn't know it yet, because I didn't know what alcoholism was. 2 years later, at 17, I'd been drinking, and, stuff that, well, actually, I'll go back a little bit, that when I was 16, that was probably the best year of my drinking. My birthday's in January. My mom's husband, who she remarried, and he worked at Coors, the brewery. So for my 16th birthday, this guy gave me 3 cases of Coors beer. And I was like, man, it's the closest I ever came to calling this guy dad. It's like he knew me. And so that's how the year started. I was partying more. The middle of that summer, this was 1984. The World's Fair was in New Orleans, and so my family went there. I got to just drink and be crazy in New Orleans, drink on Bourbon Street, and just have a blast. And the year ended with my family going on a cruise. And I guess at 16, I didn't realize. I figured all teens drank like I did. But the first night on the cruise, they had a team mixer, and so teams could get to know each other and whatever. And I went to the duty-free shop and bought a bottle of rum and brought it to the mixer. And a few hours later, the waitress is kicking me out of this thing because I'm too drunk to, even talk or, be coherent. And, and I was kind of surprised that the rest of the kids weren't joining me, but, I mean, that's where drinking had taken me, and so the year ended and, my mom had gotten sick. She had a lung disease of some sort that they didn't exactly know what it was. So the doctor told her, quit smoking, quit drinking, and she did. And so she had a liquor cabinet at the house, and, while they weren't drinking, but I was hitting her liquor cabinet pretty hard. And a few months later, I came home one night after partying, and I knew the jig was up because every single bottle from that liquor cabinet was out on the countertop. I'd watered them all down, and I knew that I was busted. And so I was 17, and, it was the first time I really got confronted about, how bad my drinking was. And she was concerned about me, so I wound up going to an outpatient program at Jeffco Mental Health, and they put me on Antabuse for this program. And, 5 years before this, I was 12. My friends and I had this bit of insanity where we found this beehive and we started to throw rocks at it. When the bees got mad, and I got stung in the finger, my whole arm swelled up, and my mom had to take me to the doctor. And he, looked at me and said, you're allergic to bees. This is pretty serious. If you get stung again, you could, get very, very hurt or possibly die. And then so here I am 5 years later sitting on the same doctor's table. He's giving me an exam to put me on Antabuse, and he said that this is pretty serious stuff, that, if you drink on Antabuse, you could get pretty messed up and you could possibly die. And my mind thought was, what does he know? He's just a doctor. I didn't, just that there had to be a way to get around it. And, so at this time, I drank 3 times on Antabuse, and the first time wasn't the insanity. It was the second and third time knowing exactly what was going to happen to me when I drank on Antabuse. And the last time it was really bad, and I thought, I was like, God, I might, I really might die. And so I made this decision that night, that I'm going to quit drinking. And the caveat was until I get off Antabuse. So I spent the next 4 or 5 months in this program doing good, working during the summer, getting a bunch of money saved up, just the whole, look better, feel better, having a better time thing. And the day came when I got off Antabuse. And so my brain remembered that deal we made. It's like, you're off Antabuse, we're drinking. And next thing I know, I'm coming out of a blackout on a roof in Golden, wondering how I got there. Me and my friends are up there, and, it's just back where I started. The months of sobriety didn't do anything to make drinking better or more successful. And so my drinking went on like that for another year and a half. And I had gotten out of high school, decided, didn't know what I was going to do with my life. So I decided I was going to do this college called Colorado Mountain College in Glenwood Springs. It was, kind of a crazy college where you could get degrees in all kinds of things, one including, being a ski instructor. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but that's where I went. And, I just didn't know what to do with my life, and went up there, and, finally I could drink the way I wanted to drink. I could, I didn't have conditions. I didn't have mom. I didn't have this. And, it didn't take long, that alcoholics seem to attract each other. And I was there a day and found people who drank like me, and basically, this is late August. I found these people, started going to school, doing this, and I was supposed to come home for Labor Day weekend, spend it with my family. And so on the way down the mountain, I stopped to say hi. I was going to tell my friends bye, and, that these lifelong friends I'd known for a week. And, one of them offered me a drink, and the next thing I know, it's the next morning, and I'm a crumpled mass on the floor. Instead of being home, I'm, still in Glenwood, and this is 1986, and we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have stuff we have today. So, my mom was worried sick, and I, made the drive home to not a very warm welcome. And so she kind of put some conditions that, if you go back to school, you have to go see this therapist, you have to do this, you have to do that. And it's, again, like I kind of thought I could beat it. And so went back, started doing that stuff, and they came up the following week, and my parents did to visit me, and I'd been at this school about 3 weeks, hadn't done laundry, had this like just pile of clothes. My mom and her husband were leaving. I asked them, can I have some money to do laundry? So she gave me $5, and they left, and I was going back to my apartment, and some guy, said he's going to make a beer run. So I looked at the $5, looked at my clothes, looked at him, gave him my money. And next thing I know, this is kind of the starting the mother of all drunks for me. That this was a Sunday night, and like I said, drank all night long. And Monday morning came, and my roommate had left. He was in school, in his classes where he should have been, and I couldn't get in my apartment, so I'm banging on the door, and finally the apartment manager had it with me, called the cops, had me taken to detox. And in detox, it kept me 5 days. And during that 5 days, I had this, made a plan. I was going to get help, go to treatment, get my life together, not knowing that might not be possible. So my dad came and got me. He was going to move me out of my apartment. And I didn't remember that night, I didn't finish all the beer. So that I opened the fridge and there was beer there, and he's taking loads of clothes and stuff out to move me back. And I'm running to the bathroom drinking this beer because I did not have the power not to. 2 hours earlier I was in detox, and here I am, and that was like the low point of my life. And he brought me back, and about a week later, I wound up at my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was drunk, walked in there. Something changed that night. That, I walked in this meeting, and I wasn't even going to introduce myself. I mean, I think they had a pretty good idea I was new and wasn't doing well, but somehow when they came around to introductions, my hand got up. I introduced myself as an alcoholic, and that was that inward concession, and something changed in me. By the time that meeting was over, I felt different. I didn't know how to explain it, and I didn't necessarily even trust it because, during my drinking, stuff just got, different all the time. But anyhow, something was different. And, I've been continuously sober since that day, and that my sobriety date is October 1st, 1986. I was 18 years old, and, it seemed like my life was over, but it was just beginning. And through these years, shortly after that, I got a sponsor, and he said, if you come to my house every week, for an hour, we'll read the book, do what it says, you can have the experience that it guarantees. And, and it's like I was hopeless, and, he was the first person who gave me hope in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I did that, and, we went through the steps, and we started, living the life that the book talks about. And, we came to the God stuff, and my family wasn't a church-going family, that my mom occasionally would send me to church with the neighbors. But so by this time in my life, my relationship with God was that, she'd sent me to church with the neighbors. We'd go to Sunday school, and they'd give us a keychain with one of the 10 commandments. And I know that I did not go enough to get all 10 of them. So I was very devoid of God. In many ways that kind of helped me in Alcoholics Anonymous because I didn't have bad experiences or stuff that I had to unlearn. There was just stuff there that, that I just didn't know that could have helped me earlier in my life. But anyhow, we made that decision, went through the steps, I cleaned house, did the inventory, got, came to the 6th step, and, and just, got to see all the stuff that was in me, knowing that I was just as powerless over it as I was alcohol. And so asking God for the willingness to let go of this and go through the steps, go through this, go make my amends, go clean up my life. And by the time I was a year sober, I'd done the steps, I'd been through the book, and, my life was so different. All of a sudden here I was, I had this life that was working. I had a fellowship. At this time I also got plugged into some young people's meetings. And in that first year, we had the Colorado Conference of Young People in AA, which is my first event. And then when I was 11 months sober, I went to my first ICCY. It was in Boston in 1987. we drove, basically 70 hours round trip to spend 50 hours in Boston, and it was a blast. It changed my life. It gave me the fellowship that I crave. And, and so what all this did was set me up for life. That the thing about being a young person in Alcoholics Anonymous is it has a fairly short shelf life, because we don't stay young forever if we stay around. And so I got to grow up. I got to get a life. I got to get married. I got to get unmarried, which was a really painful, messy experience, but I got through it. And, today I'm getting kind of close on time where I want to end it, but, today that sponsor who took me through the steps, he's still my sponsor. I see him about every week at a meeting that we go to. I've had many other spiritual advisors throughout the years, but, he's the guy who shared his experience with me that changed my life. And last year at my anniversary, he, told me, what was going on with him, that he had just been diagnosed with ALS. So for the last year, I've been watching this guy, with grace and dignity deal with, this life-changing thing, and he's getting, more wobbly. His speech is leaving, but he has a speech therapist coming, and he has an iPad that they're learning, that's going to eventually be doing the talking for him when he can't talk anymore. And the first two things that he wanted her to make it to say is, "My name is Joe, I'm alcoholic," and the Serenity Prayer. And it's just such a powerful example, that those are his priorities still, that when, he has, a terminal illness, but he, wants to, live his last days, however long that may be. I mean, I hope that's a long time, but, with the grace and dignity of being a sober person with God in his life, and the example of that, is so powerful because he, I've lost both my parents in sobriety, and he has been, like my second father for, for the last 33 years, so he's a very important person in my life. And, kind of watching this go down is, very, at times very sad, but also at times very inspiring. And he,
Hello?
Sorry.